Welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori LeBay, and I'm so excited that you're joining us today. We are going to have a fascinating conversation as usual as we learn from people all around the world at all ages and stages of life. Stay tuned as we shift our dementia care from crisis to comfort.
Here we go. What you think about, you will bring about dementia change. We will.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks. I'm your host, Lori LeBay, and today we are going to be talking with Maudes Awards for their 2024 award winner announcements. And we've got a couple of people who are going to actually be with us here today, along with their executive director. But before I go ahead and introduce you to everyone, I want to give a couple of shout outs. One is to Artist Senior Living on November 12th from 12 to 1:30. I will be doing a webinar program for professionals where they can get CEUs called Shining a Light on Sensory Care. And then that evening on November 12th from 6:30 to 7:30, I'll be doing a program specifically for families as well. And this is free for everyone to go to. You can go to the website to find more about that. I also want to give a shout out to Artifacts. They are doing a wonderful new study utilizing their program, and you can call them for more information at 844-278-4323. That's 844-278-4328. And then I also want to give a shout out to Twiddle. They have some great sensory aids. One is a variety of muffs with like fidgets on them to keep people calm, especially helps during sundowning or anytime someone has some anxiety. They also have a wonderfully designed jacket called Adapter Wrap. And it's fleece, it's soft, but it connects in the back, and it really, really is a absolutely wonderful aid, reduces some agitation during dressing and things like that. So with no further ado, let's go ahead and introduce you to our guests. Well, ladies, I am so excited to have this conversation. Every year I sit in anticipation to find out who the big winners are going to be for Maudes Awards. And this is just such a fabulous opportunity to kind of share the variety of awards that are out there and the different types of services to people. So like I said, I'm very, very anxious to learn more about all of you. But before we kind of dive into our topics, I always ask everybody individually if they have been personally touched by dementia. And I'm also going to have you introduce yourself. So I'm going to start with Marilyn. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and then tell us if you've been personally touched by dementia as well.
I'm Marilyn Raichle. I'm the Executive Director of Maudes Awards for Innovation in Alzheimer's Care. And I was a happy care partner with my mother for 9 years. My father also had dementia, and many, many, many other people in the upper regions of the family also developed it. But it was my mom that was the most important one.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. And Arlieta, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us if you've been touched by dementia?
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Arlieta Hall. I was personally touched by Alzheimer's and dementia. My father was diagnosed with it in 2000, I would say like 15. And then I decided to quit my job and be his full-time caregiver with my bonus mom, my stepmom, Charmaine. And I decided to, along that journey, use laughter as a way to communicate with people that have dementia and Alzheimer's. And I became a dementia communication specialist. So I really believe that laughter is a way of connecting, and empathy are tools to use with people with Alzheimer's and dementia.
Oh, I can't agree with you anymore. I think humor is one of those things that's put on the shelf because this is so serious. And then, we're all like a balloon that's just going to pop, And so that laughter and empathy is really, really important. Roxana, you want to introduce yourself and tell us how you're connected, if you're connected with dementia?
Sure. So my name is Roxana Delgado, and I am not directly connected to dementia. I'm a spouse of a veteran who was wounded in action, and that connected me with being a care partner and a caregiver to him. And then being in this world of caregiving, I have been connected with so many friends in the veteran community and not that are affected by dementia and Alzheimer's. So that is my connection to the dementia world. But I'm a professor at UT Health San Antonio and the director of the Caring for the Caregiver program. And a vast number of our families that we serve, they care for someone with dementia. So
Yeah, it's pretty prominent, that's for
yeah.
sure. So, well, I know we're going to have a really interesting conversation, but I have to start with Marilyn because, we always get new viewers and people are like, what the heck is Maudes Awards? So, Marilyn, take it away and let people know what's going on with Maudes Awards.
And I will be brief so we can get to these two wonderful women. Maude's Awards was founded by Richard Ferry in honor of his beloved wife, Maude, who developed dementia in 2013. And he kept looking and looking and looking for ways to make her life better and happier. And that led to Maude's Awards. And every year we give awards, monetary awards, for extraordinary achievements in dementia care. Programs that are we exist to discover and to celebrate and to share innovative ideas that are enhancing the lives of people who are living with dementia and the lives of their care partners. And this is our 5th anniversary. So it's very exciting to welcome these two lovely women.
Yeah, it's been exciting to see. Do you want to talk about the types of organizations or individuals that can apply?
Well, anybody can actually apply. It's interesting. Last year we had 168 applications, nonprofits, for-profits, individuals, organizations. Anybody can apply who's doing something that has made a difference in the lives of people who are living with dementia. So we are open to all ideas. We want to know anything and everything that is making lives better.
And is that specifically for the US or is that international?
It is in the U.S. And territories. So Puerto Rico is available, but we haven't expanded yet beyond the territories of the United States.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that
Yeah.
for our audience. And then you have like organizational level and individual level. Do you want to explain that as well?
Yeah, so organizations every year we give $25,000 to each of 3 organizations and $5,000 to up to 5 individuals. And this has been going on, and this is all funded by Richard Ferry.
He's just such an incredible visionary and philanthropist. It's really pretty incredible the money that he is putting into this movement, and this is just one of them because he also has Maudes Ventures.
Maudes Ventures. I mean, anything that is making lives better for people living with dementia in Seattle, you can pretty much trace it back to Richard. And Maudes Ventures gives away up to up to $250,000 to programs that should happen.
Mm-hmm.
So it's seed money. So he's extraordinary. I'm going to an event this afternoon that he was also behind that's called the Memory Hub. So he's a very inspiring person to work with.
Yeah, well, and he's one that really truly walks his talk. And a lot of times we see people flapping their jaw, but they don't stand behind their words when they're able to the way that he has. And so if people want to check out Maudes Awards, you just go to maudesawards.org and you can learn more about that. You'll be able to see all of the award winners that we have with us or that have won. But today, let's talk a little bit about our individuals here. And Arlieta, I'm going to go with you first, if you don't mind, talking about what it is that you do, because as an individual, I think sometimes people go, well, I don't know, it's just kind of me and I'm doing my thing. But, and so I think there's a lot of people that are hesitant to even apply, thinking, well, it's just me. So tell us how you got into this. I know you said it was because of your dad, but my guess is there was probably a trigger point somewhere along the line for you.
Yes. So while I was taking care of my father, I just like I said, decided to use humor, and then I would like post me and my dad doing things online. Like I would post like playing music and dancing with him, because even though someone has dementia or Alzheimer's, they still like music. They still they still are people. I guess that's what I really wanted to make clear. And with my father, I was counting what's left as opposed to counting what's not there. And so while I will put that online, people say, I love what you're doing with your father. And then it's kind of connected me to start making a documentary. So I'm making a documentary called Finding Your Laughter, about how I use humor as a method of communication to communicate with people with dementia and Alzheimer's. And what I realized that as a comedian, some of the things that I was going through with my father that were like really depressing me, like wandering, is a part of dementia and Alzheimer's, where they're always trying to get away. They may run away from you. They may not know who you are. And it's very scary. And when it happened to me, I was telling my mom and my stepmom, and my mom was laughing. She was like, I'm so sorry. It's just how you're saying it. It just sounds good. And then when I actually told the joke on stage as a stand-up comedian, so many people in the audience would come up to me and tell me they were dealing with it. Like no matter like the race, ethnicity, the height, like nothing. It was just like, we're all dealing with this same thing. We're all aging. We all get confused. So it just brought me to something that I would start looking for a community. So I'd be online. I'll be looking for other type of Alzheimer's groups and things that like people I can connect with. And that's how I got connected to Maudes Awards. And it was so endearing to me because it was a caregiver that actually experienced it. Like it's one thing to just know someone with Alzheimer's, but that caregiver experience is who I'm making my documentary for, because I feel like they're like superheroes that we don't talk about. I mean, we just have Superman, but I feel like if we had a cape for caregivers, like okay, that's a different story. But I just feel like the entire experience and even becoming a Maudes Awards recipient is something that to me connected to my heart, because when you're dealing with Alzheimer's and dementia, you're like in real life, it's a lot. It's a lot. And you never really get like a pat on the back as a caregiver. You just kind of pat yourself on the back and tell yourself you got to take care of yourself tomorrow. But like when I got my award in the mail, I I cried because not only did I like take care of my father, like I took care of my father to the end till he passed, and it's still something that you deal with as a caregiver, that experience. And then full like transparency, I just buried my stepbrother last week, who was also with dementia. So to be able to know that I made a difference, and then I also brought them laughter along the way, and that now I use it in my workshop. So I teach people how to curate humor around caregiving, and also to storytell in the moment, because things that happen when you're caregiving, sometimes you just cannot explain it, but you need to be able to storytell it different to yourself to get through it. So that's my biggest thing. And I found that my life is fully improvised with not just like what I do. I guess I'm stand-up comedian, improviser, an entertainer, actress, but what I really like to do the most is talk about Alzheimer's and how we can do better with actually talking to dementia and Alzheimer's patients. That brings me joy, and is what I could do all day long if I could. So I'm sorry if that was a long answer, but that's how I connected to this frightening disease that for some reason is now bringing me joy to bring light to.
So prior to kind of stepping into this role, you were a comedian and actress and all in doing improv and stuff prior.
No, I was a caseworker for the Department of Human Services. So I was determining eligibility for like Medicaid and supplemental nutrition assistance program. I quit my job to take care of my father. I was like working for the state of Illinois. And then while I was taking care of him, I started doing comedy. So it all kind of came together. And then I was like so I was his home care aide. I quit my job, became my father's home care aide, but it wasn't enough money to like sustain how I live. So I had to do like gig working around that to actually take care of him. And then along the gig work, I was like, well, I could go to try to do a stand-up comedy class. I could do something fun. And so that's how I started doing it in improv, and it kind of came together. And I met an activities director in one of my improv classes that worked with dementia patients. And that is how I started marrying improv and dementia together.
Okay. Well, and I would imagine working for the government, you got to have a sense of humor there too.
Yes. Yes, and I would do that for my clients because it's like you don't know what anybody's going through, but you could at least have a smile on your face and make them laugh. So yes, that's who I am in general.
Well, and one of the things that I love with humor and with improv, is it's something you can use in all of your life. You don't have to just be caring for someone with dementia.
Mhm,
You could be dealing with your husband or wife or
mhm,
partner, a friend, your boss, a 2-year-old. It doesn't make any difference, a
mhm.
neighbor. And I've always said that I think humor is the glue that kind of holds us together because life is very imperfect, and if we can't laugh at those imperfections that we all have and we all do at certain times, it's going to be a real depressing world that we're living in. And so I think it really takes a huge burden off the backs of so many when someone gives them permission to laugh, because there are people out there that'll say, and I know because this happened to me in caring for my own mom who lived with dementia for 30 years. Lori, this is serious. You can't laugh. And
Yes.
it's like,
Right.
step in my shoes, sweet pea, and you will see how bad you need to laugh sometimes.
Yes.
You can't be serious at this level all the
Mhm.
time. That is not healthy for anyone. So I think that is really, really important. Now, when you started, caring for your dad, is there an example or two you can give us that just hit you as, okay, I'm going to laugh or I'm going to cry type deal?
Yes, I think the first thing was when I would try to feed my dad, and he would already say, "Oh, I've done that already," and I was just like, "Okay." um, then I would come back and be 15 minutes. Then he would like touch his stomach, like, "Ooh." Oh, I'm so full. I've done that already. And I'll be like, okay. But what really got me was when when I would get him in the shower and then he would see his reflection in the mirror when he would like peek around the shower and he would just shout at the man, like, get, get out. So I used to tell the man, get out of the shower. And I used to think that was so funny because I would run him out and he'd be like, thank you. I'm like, you're welcome. I got that man out. He had no business being in here. But it was just so funny watching him just interact and just being supporting him no matter what he thought. Like he would think he was still a principal. So he would ask me like, why am I not doing what I needed to be doing for the day as a teacher? He did not understand why I was in his office and not teaching the classroom. And I would just go along with him. I'm like, I'm so sorry. We were on lunch break, but I'll just get back and we'll have a teacher's review. He's like, okay, get back to work. So I just, love making him still feel as superior and as if he still was, and as a person, as if he still had, just like and we all do, we all have our things and I think the way we go about ourselves. So going along with him, even in the craziest moments, still made him feel validated and as if he was in control. And that to me made a lot to still have him have his dignity.
Hmm. Well, and that is so important, stepping into their world and allowing them to have that purpose and, not this right or wrong. It's like, no, you can't do that anymore. That portion of your life is over. I mean, just think how that would make us feel if somebody
Right.
talked to us like that. And I think so often when people are caring, it's never told to them or talked to unless you get into these support groups that become very realistic that this isn't a healthy thing, not for somebody with dementia, not for someone who is totally healthy in all aspects of their life. We all need to feel a purpose and a sense of control, and still caring for somebody can still be merged together. And so it's easier for everyone to do. When you mentioned eating, I think of my mom. We would have these big gatherings at my house. We'd have like these kind of big summer parties. We'd have 100 people over. And so there was always tons of food. And so my mom would sit down with her plate. She'd eat her plate. We'd take it away. Well, then someone would sit down next to her, bring a plate. And she's like, well, why can't I have a plate? And it's, finally we were just like, okay, it's comfort food. She's having
Hmm.
fun. We're not going to argue. We're really not worried if she's overweight or not at this point. It's all
Right.
about letting her feel good. Though we did question how she could eat so much sometimes with all of that. But and people would kind of give you the stink eye, or else they'd be smiley, not understanding, and you would have
Hmm.
to, or I think you need to explain to people why you're
Hmm.
allowing that to happen, or
Yes.
what's behind it. And I think so often we're embarrassed. So many people are,
Hmm.
they don't feel comfortable sharing. This is the world we live in today. This is
Right.
their reality, and we're stepping into it, and we'd appreciate it if you would as well with
Yes.
that. So, Marilyn, this has got to be really hard with the amount of applications you guys get to decide who's going to be winners in these categories.
Yes, if we could have, I couldn't actually say to Richard, I think we should triple the number of awards we give so that, yeah, it's really hard. And so we have an advisory board that reads every single application 3 times, and it's a long process, and it really is difficult because there were so many wonderful programs. And so that's one reason we do the handbook every year, where we put together a collection of all the great innovative ideas that have come our way. And that is available, will be available in November, late November, I think, on our website, modsawards.org. And it's free. And we can also send people printed copies. So everyone can sort of learn about all these wonderful programs. And being a part of this community of people and organizations that are doing so much to make people's lives better is so inspiring every day.
Oh,
And I love what you're doing with bringing joy, Arlieta. It's something that matters to me because that's what I learned with mom.
I love it too. I think that, Alita, you're gonna hear from me so you can bring some joy to San Antonio.
Please, I can't wait. I can't wait. I'll be in DC for the next 8 weeks, so I'm coming around.
so now, Alita, you said you're making a film. Whereabouts are you in the process of all of that?
So currently I'm in post production, so we're almost finished, but we're just kind of reworking. I've done a few screenings with the film assembled just to get like feedback on it. So now we're just kind of taking in all the feedback and then kind of finishing it up with the final tones. But so far, we have been working on it, I would honestly say, since about 2019. And what I did learn as a first time filmmaker, that it takes a lot to make a film. I kind of underestimated it because I was like, I'm a caregiver. I could do this. I could do anything, which honestly pushed the film. And that's what really like kind of made me is where it's at now. So I'm really just trying to make sure that I'm covering all aspects because while I was making it, my father was still alive. But then once he passed away, I was like, wait, we need to kind of cover this as well because grieving is a part of the process that we all deal with too. So just trying to make sure we cover that. And so we're almost finished. So we're looking to be done by the end of this year, but if not, the very beginning of next year.
And then, as far as distribution, have you decided on how that's going to happen?
Yeah, so my ultimate goal is to be like distributed on like PBS. I would like to reach caregivers at home instead of trying to have them go out because I know how it is when a caregiver. It was just hard for me to do anything outside of that. So I really want to do like PBS, and then I also am doing an educational route as well because I would like to make a shorter cut of the film. I would say about 15-20 minutes. That way I can use on like mental institutions, health institutions, schools, things of that nature. So that way we can kind of do preventative care and also like here as far as teaching people how to communicate with people with dementia and Alzheimer's.
Wonderful.
You know,
Well, kudos to you.
Thank
I'm
you.
so excited to be able to get to chat with you and learn more. So it sounds I love when someone takes a hard situation and then brings light to it and helps not only themselves and their family and their community around them, but the greater good for the world. So I can't wait to see your film. So that'll be neat. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, let's go ahead and talk with you, Roxana. Can you tell us a little bit more about your organization and what all you're about?
So, the Caring for the Caregiver is a program under the School of Nursing at UT Health San Antonio. So, we're in an academic institution. However, the program behaves very much like any other nonprofit, where we partner with the Alzheimer Association and so many other partners in the community to bring workshops and seminars and things that can really improve the quality of life of our caregivers by increasing their education, skills building. We try to do it in person and also hybrid, so virtual, because we understand that many caregivers cannot leave their homes. So we definitely get to them however we have to do it. But our mission is to really improve the quality of life of our caregivers. And being in a healthcare environment, we're trying to also make them less fearful of accessing the healthcare, field. And how do you communicate with your healthcare provider? How do you ask questions and ask questions? Because we believe that caregivers are the best advocates for their loved ones. They're the ones who are going to end up being part of the care team. And they're the ones that can make their loved ones' lives better. So and our motto is making lives better as well. So we say, what can we do? What can we implement in innovative ways so we can get to their homes and we can bring them to our area in our rooms and in our classrooms and make sure that they're equipped for this hard job.
So with, you had mentioned about, the nursing program and training staff and trying to bust those barriers down of, come on over here, this is a good job, versus people scattering like rats, and running away, really giving them an understanding. Do you also reach out to schools like in junior high and high school as well? And the reason I ask that is, I think there's such a great interest. And I know when I used to go into the schools, and I haven't for a long time now, I was absolutely shocked at the number of kids caring for somebody with dementia that didn't have a clue what it was really about, because the families were all protecting them. Well, they don't need to know that. Just come home after school, and no, you can't do your extracurricular because we really need you to fill this gap. But they weren't really educated, and they really weren't given permission to try new things and get creative, like Arlieta, and there's so many different ways to connect with a person with dementia.
And it should be all the opposite. We're seeing a lot of children undertaking that caregiving role, the grandparents and older adults. And where we get to meet them, not so much in the schools, but some of the senior centers here in San Antonio are having a dual program. So you have the seniors and you have the school age children in the same place. It's a very innovative way of being able to combine the grandparents with their grandchildren in one place. And it has been fabulous to connect with not only the seniors, but their grandchildren. And that has been implemented here in San Antonio. So we don't go as much to the school settings. We wish to. Our manpower just not reached that level yet, but we definitely invite anyone. We don't discriminate by age. So all our workshops and seminars are open to anyone that identifies as a caregiver, no matter the age. And as long as they come with an adult, or if they get a release, they're more than welcome to participate of our programming.
Okay. Can you give us some examples of titles of programs that you have?
Oh, absolutely. So we have several ones. So we have one that is very basic, is Essentials of Caregiving. So there we bring people who are experts in sleeping, in sleep hygiene, or activities of daily living, or we bring an occupational therapist, a speech language pathologist. So we bring all the different healthcare providers that would more likely you will encounter in caring for someone with dementia. So we make it fun. It's not just, a seminar, but we have refreshments. We make it like a gathering. We encourage our caregivers to connect with each other, because that's another area of caregiving that people get isolated, and they tend to then become like completely an outcast of the rest of the community. And we're trying to bring the community together, and those who have a similar journey so they can share. So we have refreshments. We make it like a gathering. Then there's like a 20-minute, 30-minute, essentials of caregiving, the seminar. Then there's a long portion of Q&As. And that healthcare provider have the opportunity to address all the different questions. We change this this is monthly, and we each month is a different topic. And if we notice there's a topic that maybe merits a bit more frequency, we bring another of that same healthcare provider back. And it's not just healthcare providers, but just not long ago we had someone that she works very much, she's out of the Chicago area, and she works very much with caregivers across the nation in how do you communicate with your healthcare provider. And she cared for her mom for many years. Her mom passed, and she had dementia. Her mom had dementia, and she's an expert in this area. But she comes out of being a family caregiver, just like Alita, right? So we brought her, and she not only worked with the caregivers, but we also invited all the nursing students. Why? Because healthcare providers need to understand how to communicate, how to treat, how to include caregivers in everything they do. And we're trying to be that kind of school that is implementing this type of new programming where we invite the healthcare providers to very much be part of this. As part of that, we also have an experiential program that is called the Virtual Dementia Training, BDT. So we actually invite the family members to come in for 3-4 hours, and then they get to experience how living with dementia will look like or feel like. So everything gets altered from their sight, hearing, the heaviness of certain parts of the body. So, it's like a full immersive virtual dementia training. So that's a couple hours. It's different rooms, and they get to put themselves in the shoes of someone with dementia. Typically after that, we need to have debriefings, and we need to sit down and talk to the caregivers because they get affected emotionally, saying like, oh my goodness, I didn't think it was this bad. Oh my goodness, I never thought. Because sometimes what happens is that because of the lack of education, they tend to push their loved one. Oh no, but there's a birthday here. You need to be there. Everybody's going to be there. And then after that, we're going to go to movies. And then after that, and we have seen it where when the caregiver does not understand how it is like to have dementia, what are those control environments that you need to potentially have for your loved one. So we put them for 3-4 hours in the shoes of their loved ones so they get to see how it is like to live with dementia. Another program, which is the one that is the latest program that we have, is a digital literacy program. So what we're trying to do, and we're doing, is that we invite caregivers to come to our classrooms and then get to learn how to use a computer. Believe it or not, many caregivers do not know how to even open a computer. And I have an anecdote about this. We received a call one day, and this caregiver, she was sobbing. She was distraught. And we're like, okay, what happened? And she said, well, the thing is that my husband was supposed to have surgery. I showed up to the surgery day, and they canceled the surgery. And they canceled the surgery because I didn't complete the paperwork. But what happened is that the paperwork was sent through one of those, apps, like healthcare apps, like MyChart, and she didn't even know that existed. So she did not complete all the paperwork that is, pre-surgery. And she was very distraught, and she said, it is my fault if anything happens to him. And, and we felt terribly sorry, about what happened. And then it just occurred to us, and we started working with some other partners like AARP and Senior Planet and saying, hey, I know that you offer a lot of training to access Zoom, to access, they have great curriculum, but then there's no curriculum to really empower or educate the caregivers, make them skill set better in accessing these healthcare platforms so they can truly take advantage of that access to care. Some other caregivers don't know how to make appointments and these days healthcare is moving into the digital platform. So that's one of the latest programs. It's been very popular. we do everything bilingual. So we are in San Antonio, Texas. So 82% of our population are Hispanics, and a good 30 or 40% only speak Spanish. So we try to cater to the population that we have here. And we also have programming that is specifically that have the military and veteran cultural competency, because we see older adults that are Vietnam, Korea, World War II, that they have dementia, and their caregivers are serviced by the Veterans Affairs and the VA, but we're partnering with them as well, so they can send them to us, and then we train them as well and help them with all this different programming. One other that we have is a memory cafe. That's one of the most popular, because it's really a gathering. It is come as you are, bring your loved one. We provide respite care during that time so they can focus on mingling and having fun with other peers at the same time that their loved ones get to meet others that, have dementia. So it's been super popular. People love it. The refreshments are good. And then we try to, of course, increase always education with everything, but at the same time, bringing community together, reducing isolation, and making sure that they're well taken care of. So Memory Cafe is a very popular one as well. And one more that we have is the GROW program. That's the acronym. So it is gardening rooted in occupational wellness. And what we do is that we bring them to the botanical garden. They're great partners here in San Antonio. And we bring them to the botanical garden, and they learn how to work with, the land. And that we know there's a lot of benefits in gardening. So we bring the caregivers again, they make community, they learn different things about, using their own gardens and creating spaces that are suitable for them. Because many caregivers cannot leave their homes. So what can we do to bring the basically things to their own, household? So those are some of the programs. We have activities all the time. We don't stay at the university per se. We're mobile. We always joke that we have this sign in front of our door that says, if you're looking for so-and-so, please call the cell phone or so-and-so. Why? Because in universities, sometimes people feel a bit intimidated coming to us. So what we do is that we partner with the community like Meals on Wheels, and we run some of our seminars out of there. So that way we also can screen the caregivers who are coming and see if they're eligible for Meals on Wheels. So we're taking care of two things, the food insecurity at the same time that we're taking care of the education. So again, we're always busy, always on the go, getting out there in the community, working alongside the government. We have the Bexar County Aging Agency. We work with Meals on Wheels, Alzheimer Association, and so many others. The Botanical Garden, the zoo. We have tremendous partners. We could not do this alone. I promise we wouldn't be able to do this alone. So thank you so much. This is amazing. We were so excited when we heard from the Maudes Award. And I have to say, I don't have the trophy with me. My team took it and put it in their area. It's their trophy. They're always on the go, and we have a beautiful multidisciplinary team. All of them have been touched by caregiving, and 3 of them have been touched by dementia, and they no longer have their families with us. So our whole team, it's of pure hearts. I say, sometimes finding people with brains is not that difficult, right? But brains and hearts, that is the most difficult job, to find people like that. And if you come here and you get to meet one by one our team, it's just fabulous. They all have the heart for this. They all have experience caregiving. And again, 3 of them have experienced dementia. So I learn a lot with them about dementia.
Wow, there's so many things I want to comment on. One is I love that your team has experience in what they're talking about. To me, that is absolutely huge. And I think there's a big divide out of there from, book smarts, academic, medical model versus street smarts and survival. And a lot of times they don't mesh, because it's like you're not understanding what I'm really going through. So I think that opens a door right there. I love the GROW program and the acronym for that. Very cool with the gardening. There's a gal out there that does a butterfly garden, and she did that with her husband because he loved the garden, but he could watch the butterfly change, from being in its little capsule to popping out, and so they would just look for that and all the changes and stuff. With that, I'm a huge fan of the Memory Cafe. And when you said they're really a gathering, my inside was going whoop whoop, because that's what I call it. I hate calling it a support group because I think there's so much stigma attached to that. I know even for myself, I did not want to go to a support group. I didn't have time to do another thing for my mom. I didn't see it as doing something for me. I really didn't, which was pretty asinine, but that's how I viewed it. And then when I went, I was just shocked. And, I was lucky enough to start one of the very first memory cafes in the US. And, I still do them to this day. And people say this is my lifeline. I mean, because so many friends and family drop away, they have it's like instant peers where they feel safe to say just about anything and know they'll be supported and understood. Because so many times you try to share your stories with family and friends and they just scratch your head going, it's not that big of a deal, or I just saw them and they look fine. What are you talking about? You're just a drama queen, or I mean, all of those things come with it. And that group understands, and, they really say too, that it takes away the loneliness. And when we can remove the loneliness and build trust and support, to me, that's 90% of the problem right there, is having a safe place for people to be able to go and be themselves. So kudos to that. The digital literacy. When you were talking about that, I was thinking you were talking about digital reading, because there's lots of reading programs now, from Nana's Books, and there's just all different types. Medora Magazine, that's dementia specific, but it can be used for many different things. But I loved when you said, because so much, I think, in healthcare, they think everybody has a smartphone. Well, they don't.
They don't.
And they don't want one, and their computer use for not everybody, because some people are very savvy, but others, they just don't want to go there. They want to talk to somebody. And, that's their comfort level. And to think of somebody missing an appointment and for a caregiver to feel the burden of guilt for not knowing, I just think, oh my gosh.
It broke our hearts.
Yeah. So that's a brilliant thing you guys are doing, because, I think caregivers feel enough guilt without adding more within the system, to fall through. And I also loved when you talked about communicating with professionals, because I know I struggled with that. And it took me a while to figure out, I'm not talking to the doctor anymore. I'm going for the nurse, because the nurse I can send stuff to and I can communicate with her, and then she'll highlight it for the doctor. Because, and I know, my mom's been gone 10 years now, and she lived with it for 30. So things have changed a lot. A lot of that times nowadays you actually can get through to the doctor, but will the doctor really take time to make the notes? Or will a nurse have a little bit more time to process that and maybe be able to research, some help in terms of the actual situation? Because, you have so many tough conversations, and it can be, should we move? It could be driving. I mean, those are two like blow up the family moments, and when a doctor says, oh, your daughter called, or your daughter or son thinks, versus them taking on the responsibility and say, with the disease progression, this is pretty common, and these are ways that you can still be supported. Two totally different things. And you can go home and not have, that animosity, which, people think, well, a person with dementia, they're going to forget. Not all the time. I mean, my mom held on to certain things, and I'm like, really, out of all the things, you're going to remember that, and be mad at me for 2 or 3 days intensively. And so being able to have a good, comfortable relationship with your medical professionals is, to me, just a critical aspect. And it just gives so much more support to those family members, or even when they go in for, and I know the nurses aren't responsible for this, but when somebody goes in for a diagnosis and the doctor's like, here's your prescription, here's your next appointment, here's, get your affairs in order, and people walk to their car and they cry for 2 hours because they're not given anything to tap into. So for the nurses to understand how important it is to get connected with others in their arena, or even on social media, if there's not something right in their neck of the woods, that all of those things are really, really valuable and make the process so much easier. And then the last thing I'll comment on was the virtual tours that you do. And my audience has probably heard this from me before, but some of you haven't. I've done it 3 times. The third time I went, I knew exactly what to expect. I knew the order, of really what was going to happen. And I walked out of there and went up to my hotel room, and all of a sudden I'm sitting there for about an hour and I'm like, craps, I left my purse back there. I mean, I was totally disoriented. And so I'm like running back, going, oh my gosh, I hope I get there before they close. But for somebody who is in the business, who knows better, to get that disoriented through the process, I think it is such a great thing for families and professionals to go through, because that sensory disorganization, it really can bobble you when it's dark and there's these beeping noises and you're getting instructions that you can't understand. Yeah. All of those things are things that people with dementia deal with multiple times a day. And when we look inward and go, oh, that was kind of exhausting, that was just a moment in time and then we're back to normal. But they're living this over and over and over again. Yeah. And so I love those. And I also love all of the different, classes and seminars and stuff that you're doing. Brilliant work. And your partnerships with so many, saying, we're not just going to be here, because you're right. People will get intimidated, or even just trying to find parking at a university. Sometimes the walk itself can be too far, and you don't have, like I'm in Minnesota, we have snowstorms and things like that can really make it bad. But you have your own stuff.
In our city like San Antonio, you may think that it's not, it's one of the largest cities, right? Mm-hmm. But then how can we pretend someone to drive 30, 40 minutes to then, like you said, find parking and then walking? And we partner also with our local public transportation. They just brought a caregiver that she wanted to visit. And we're like, well, we can come to you. No. I want to see the place. I want to come visit. So we partner with, of course, the public transportation that work with people with disabilities, and they brought her. She spent 6 hours with us. She just didn't want to be home. She wanted to be somewhere else. And so we try to be very creative in what we do. So the beauty is that our whole team, they have walked this journey. So they know how to have that empathy and understand the caregiving journey. And we change a lot of different things in terms of, we try to be very creative and innovative from the moment that you call the center. You're going to reach one person. You don't have to go through a very long, press 1 for this, press 2 for that. Caregivers are tired. They have to maneuver and juggle with so many different responsibilities, the care coordination alone, that we try to be that place where they find community and they find understanding, and they also find, people that are willing to listen and be here for them. But at the same time, we don't want to just listen and just stay like this, like, oh, we're sorry. We want to make sure that we equip them. That is why consistently we are creating either curriculum, or we find the experts in different areas and we bring them on board. So that's what I was saying, Alita, we need people to bring some joy and laughter. So you will be hearing from me because we see it. We see it in our community. I do have one anecdote that this happened like 2 or 3 weeks ago. So in the Grow program, which is very popular, this gentleman, his wife, he cares for his wife, and he couldn't, he couldn't uh, bring her that day because she wasn't feeling that well. So he ended up going into the grocery store, and he made friends with the cashier for so many. Which caregiver doesn't see the grocery store as our me time, right? I was one of those. I needed some me time. I ran to the grocery store. So anyway, so he made friends with this young, college student that was a cashier. And that day he's like, "How are you doing?" And he said, "Well, I'm good, but I was supposed to go to a program and I'm not gonna be able to go." And it's like you said, they look forward to it. So when the cashier said, "So why not?" I said, my wife cannot go, and I don't want to go by myself because everybody goes in pairs." The young man said, "Well, I can go with you if you want." So in that Grow program, it was hilarious because then you have the caregiver who's the older gentleman. Everybody's like, "Where's your wife?" And he's like, "Oh, she couldn't make it, but he tagged along." So he came with this older gentleman who's a caregiver, and everybody has such a great time and asking questions. And of course, we wrote to the manager and we said, "This is what community should do. This is how the community needs to embrace each other." And businesses, I feel like every sector of our community needs to be dementia friendly, right? Where we support each other and we even allocate some of our resources to support those who are caring for their loved ones. So that's a prime example that really shifted and changed everything. I mean, we were all overjoyed to see that happening, and we're writing about that very soon because in hopefully people are gonna be more empowered to do things like that are out of the box. With dementia, there's no box. We have to think completely like there's no box. So that's what we try to do. We try to be very empowered and empowering people, very loving. We're academics. And if I may share this. So when you were saying about the healthcare provider, so as an academic, one of my areas of study that I've been doing for 6, 7 years now is changing the paradigm of healthcare. It's called inclusive care model. And we're testing how we can include better caregivers in healthcare settings. From the moment the caregiver walks into an ER or any other clinical setting, how can we start including them? Are we asking the patients, who's your caregiver? Who's the person that cares for you? Are we documenting that? How are we treating them? Are we leaving them in the waiting room, or are we inviting them to the room with the healthcare provider? And how are they addressing the caregiver in terms of including them as part of the treatment team? So we're studying that, but that's on my hat as an academic, which also falls under the caring for the caregiver, but that's more on the research side. So we're trying to bring things that are innovative and that potentially can change the landscape of caregiving in our nation.
Well, I love that. And one recommendation I would have, and I hear this over and over, and I went through this as well, is have it documented in one spot. I just had a friend in the hospital, and I was requesting information from the social worker. The social worker never got it, and then things kind of blew up, and then we had to backstep. And they're like, "Well, I don't know where they put it." And it's just like, oh my goodness, so one department, there has to be a spot. Same like at banks. People are asked all the time, "Well, we need your power of attorney." You've scanned it 52 times, and so, and that's not something you really want to carry in your glove compartment because they can't do their job. I mean, that's how, as a caregiver, you feel like, why can't they do their job, with this? Or another thing was, again, with this person, we did their healthcare directives. It actually got notarized in the hospital when they were in the emergency room, and they scanned it in. Nobody could find it, so everybody who came in was asking, and I'm like, "Here's a copy." But nobody knows where to find it.
I agree with you, Lori. Yes,
Huge
wholeheartedly. I agree.
And from an outsider, it's just, as a caregiver, it's just irritating because you're trying to click off what you need to do, and it's like, why am I bothering? if no one's really going to follow what they're telling me I have to follow and what I have to do. So just my 2 cents. But how exciting the work you guys are doing, and I can totally understand how you guys got picked. Marilyn, are there others that you want to highlight at all?
Well, what I love about these programs, both of them, is that you are addressing the needs of home caregivers. And there are so many home caregivers, if not the vast majority, who are operating without a net. They do not have the support they need to thrive and to let their loved ones thrive. And you are doing it with community and with joy. And it is just so heartening to see. I mean, it's just that there are programs that are using art that are bringing people together. There are programs that are reaching underserved communities where there's a really high incidence of Alzheimer's, to bring them more news and more information. It's just this growing community in this country. It's growing. It's not big enough, but it's growing, and that you are alleviating the fear that we as a society have of dementia. And that until we can get rid of that fear, until we can embrace the value of people who are living with dementia, we as a society won't give the support that everyone needs. So you address, and I think if you look at all the Maudes Awards winners this year, you'll see that they are addressing that need. Makes my heart sing.
That's massive. And I would totally agree with that. And it's such a donut hole, really. It really is a big missing factor. Do you want to mention the other winners at all?
There's Alzheimer's LA, which did a telenovela program in a Hispanic community. There is Arts Philadelphia, which is using art to bring people together. There's C. Nathaniel Brown, who is doing a program called Exposed Dementia, which is to bring this to the African American community. There's Kristen Nelson, who is doing a program where you can record stories so that you always have access to those stories that you are telling and experiencing with your loved one. See, I'm missing. Oh, and there's Terry Montgomery, which is a woman living with dementia who has a podcast where she has it called Let's Talk About It, where she again alleviates fear and highlights the humanity of people who are living with dementia. I think I've got everybody. Don't want to leave anybody out. If I do, I'll scream.
And in your program, you list a lot of the people who had applied as well, so people can see so many other types of programs.
So many, just extraordinary. And we start again next March. Applications start next March.
So put it on your calendar. And I know I'll be pushing it out too and reminding people to, get their applications in. And one of the things too is I believe your application process is still very simple compared to, like, sometimes people hear of grants and they go, oh, I don't know if I can do this,
Yeah, these aren't grants. These are applications for things that you have done. They're fairly simple. It's 2 pages, 7 questions. So it's not awful. And that I actually give feedback to anybody who wants it on their application. I probably just killed myself. If we have 168 people applying, but yeah.
Well, you do want to grow every year, and that's a good thing. It encourages people to step in and step up too. And believe in themselves that what they're doing is more powerful sometimes than what their self-talk is telling them, because it takes all of us to really make this change happen. And, one of the things that I like is the creativity of people. Like, someone might say, well, I don't really have a talent. I'm not a speaker. I'm not a trainer. I can't write, but maybe they're doing prayer shawls, which makes a huge difference. And it's something that they love to do. Or, maybe it's kids going in and volunteering at a senior center or a memory care, like with caregiver, kid caregivers, making a huge difference. And, so we have to get to the point of igniting people's creativity, empowering them to step into their kind of their superpower, that brings them joy. And when it brings them joy and comfort, it's going to bring somebody else joy and comfort as well, which is incredible. So you can go to Maudes Awards. Again, it's just maudesawards.org. You can reach Arlieta Hall at arlietahall.com. And then for Roxana, you can go to the University of Texas Health Science Center of San Antonio, and that is uthcsa.edu, and we'll have all of that in the show notes for you as well. I do also want to mention, feel free to go to alzheimersspeaks.com, go to our free educational resources. There's tools, there's the radio show, there's dementia chats, there's dementia arts. You can also go to Dementia Map, which is also a sister company of ours, which has a variety of different resources, products, and tools for people to be able to tap into. And then last, I just want to give a shout out also to Qblocks. If anybody is looking for a great webmaster that has a social conscience, who is reasonably priced, communicates down at this level where most of us talk versus over our head, Q for Good is absolutely incredible. So please check them out. And I want to thank our audience. I encourage you to be a giver of hope. Like, click, and share, not because we're, counting tallies, because we know you have people who need this information. And the only way we're going to give comfort and make people feel it's okay to even click on something is by going through a trusted source. And every single one of us has our sphere that we are a trusted source for. So be a giver of hope. Doesn't cost you any money, takes very little time, but my gosh, can you make a difference? So thank you all. And, thank Richard too for Maudes Awards and creating what he has created here. I'm just amazed each and every year at the growth and, the services that are out there. It's very cool. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you.